And going straight across to Admiral Michael Rogers, who's with us on the broadcast. I have to start off by asking you for your assessment of where things stand right now. We just heard what the U.S. president had to say as well, expressing his dissatisfaction with Israel. The big question at this point is about the fate of the ceasefire.
So I think the key is where we stand today. The ceasefire is in effect, and it seems to be holding. We are not seeing subsequent exchanges of missile fire from either Israel or Iran, and that's a positive. I suspect this is going to hold.
So you do sound optimistic at this point. Do you sense that the two sides, with the way the exchange of the missile fire has gone on, do you see that fading away in the next few hours then?
I do. I mean, my view is that each felt they needed to make a final statement, if you will, but each, I think, believes that the ceasefire is in their best interest.
What do you think then would have prompted the U.S. president to say what he did, especially about his stance on Israel at this point, just hours after the announcement of the ceasefire agreement?
I don't want to speak for the President of the United States, but, you know, my sense is his view was, look, we have a framework, we have a solution here. Don't lose sight of that. Why are you being distracted by continuing to engage with each other? I would argue, remember, we're at the end of a 12-day conflict, it appears, and there's always a human dynamic in this, and stopping is often harder than actually starting, sadly.
Right. So while we do keep a close eye on what unfolds over the next few hours, a crucial period indeed, let's just also talk about how things reached this point. The very fact that the ceasefire agreement came into being. What do you make of what unfolded and what that really means for America's position at this point?
So what I think you've seen in the last 18 hours is that all three of the major parties involved, Israel, Iran, and the United States, had reached a point where they felt that they had an out where they could end this thing. What I mean by that is you saw Iran launch a series of missiles against U.S. infrastructure in Qatar. You saw them use drones against U.S. facilities and bases in Iraq. But the Iranians gave notice to Qatar. They gave notice to the United States. They informed us that the attack was coming. They told us what the target was going to be. They told us how they were going to do it. I think clearly the Iranians were signaling, we feel we need to respond, but we don't want this to escalate, and we don't want this to worsen the situation. Once that attack was repelled successfully with no damage, I think the Iranians' calculus was, we've done what we need to do. We've shown resolve. We're in a position to stop. I think the U.S. felt, we've shown our ability to stand up to this punch from Iran. We've significantly impacted the long-term ability of Iran to create a nuclear weapon within the current structure and the current program. And for Israel, I think their calculus was, we've reached a point where we've achieved our objective. So I think all three parties felt we're at a point where we can stop, and we can all use a narrative that effectively claims victory in some ways.
And at the heart of all of this being Iran's nuclear program, and while we do await further clarity on the status of the nuclear program, the question also is about where that enriched uranium really is.
Right. So I think one of the things we need to remember is we should be very grateful that this conflict appears to have ended. We'll be watching closely to ensure that that actually happens. But we should never forget that what precipitated this conflict in the first place has not yet gone away, in the sense that the Iranians have not indicated that that it is their intent to walk away from enrichment, that it is their intent to walk away from repairing, replacing, enhancing, enlarging their nuclear capability. I mean, those are the kinds of things I think people are going to be watching to see. You know, do the Iranians use this to say, look, we need to step back from what we have been doing? I don't think they're going to say that, but I think that's one of the things people are going to be looking to see.
In terms of the larger implications for the region, do you see can we really say that there has been to some extent, some kind of an impression that the region at this point is on tenterhooks, even though the ceasefire agreement has come into place?
I mean, I wouldn't say tenterhooks. I think that most of the nations in the Gulf region, they wanted the conflict to end. They view the ceasefire as a positive. I believe they were both concerned about Israel's actions against Iran, but they were also clearly very worried about would Iran expand this conflict to potentially include the Gulf states or American infrastructure in the Gulf states. That's why the Qatar target was very interesting. It's also very significant that the Iranians reached out not just to the United States, but to the Qatari government to warn them that this was coming. So even the Iranians, I think, are trying to signal we don't want to broaden this into a broader conflict with the region.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with your assessment.
Thank you, Molly.